I'm running for president to help America wake up to the fact that it's not immigrants. Like, we need to start getting our arms around the fact that it's technology that's transforming our economy. But I'm also running for president to help show that Asian Americans are just as American as anyone else, that we can contribute at the highest levels, that we care about our country as much as anyone else, and that when it comes down to it, we can lead this country just as any other community. We're very good at tests. Now, you might look at this and say, hey, this guy's running for president. That's really great and admirable, but he cannot win, would be one thought that you could have. But I'm going to break down for you what the test is. The test is not what the pundits say. The test is not the media. The test is how many caucus-going voters I can get in Iowa to vote for me. Now, there are 3.1 million people in the state of Iowa. Guess how many participated in the Democratic caucus in 2016 as a percentage? So the reason I'm talking about Iowa so much is that if you're into presidential politics like HP is, you know that Iowa is the first state to vote for president, and that other states will then take its cues from Iowa. That's why if you look at all the presidential candidates, Elizabeth Warren is in Iowa right now. I've been to Iowa 7 times. I'm going for an 8th time at the end of this month. And there's a speech, there's a video of me speaking to 1,000 Iowans. How many of you have seen that video? I think HP sent it around. So that's why we're all talking to Iowans, that they are the first state to vote. So what percentage of the 3.1 million Iowans do you think participated in the Democratic caucus in 2016? Oh, sorry, go ahead, shout out. Oh, well, less than 1% would be really small, man. That'd be like super tiny. Sorry? Yeah, it's 5.6%. 171,000 out of 3.1 million participated in the Democratic caucus. This is fun. Asians like math. I like math. So you have 171,000 out of 3.1 million. It's like 5.6%. How many Democrats do you think are going to run for president this time?
20.
20 to 30. So if you have 20 to 30 candidates, and let's call it 200,000 Iowa voters, how many Iowans do I need to get on board in order to finish first, second, or third, give or take, approximately?
At least 5%.
Maybe 30 to 40,000. So you're talking about 40,000 Iowans getting on board with a candidacy where the centerpiece of my platform is giving every adult $1,000 a month. And when I go to Iowa, you're laughing, but when I go to Iowa, I ask them some simple questions. I say to them, have you noticed stores closing where you live? And they say, yes, I have. And then I ask them, why are your stores closing? And they think about it for a second, and they answer. And what is that answer? Amazon, that's right. Amazon's soaking up $20 billion more of commerce every year, so their stores are closing. 30% of American malls are going to close in the next 4 years. I remember going to the Crossgates Mall here and having very fun. Hopefully Crossgates will be in the 70% that survive, but 30% of malls are going to close in the next 4 years. Oh, thank you. I'm her nephew. So when I go to Iowa and I say, hey, your stores are closing, yes, it's Amazon, what are you going to do about it? They look at me and they say, I can do something about it? And I say, yes, if you make me president, I will return $1,000 to each of you that's right now flying off into the cloud to Seattle, let you rebuild your Main Street economies, create jobs here in Iowa, and give your kids a reason to stay. And that's enough to get 40,000 Iowans on board. So all of the noise, if I get 40,000 Iowans on board, I finish first or second in the Iowa caucus in 2020, and then the Asian man who wants to give everyone money becomes front page news, not just here in the United States, but around the world. That is the test. That is the only test. The only test is whether I can get 40,000 Iowans on board. So what I say to Asian Americans in this context is, look, we've been overlooked and ignored for decades, and we've pretty much sat it out, because we do not think that what happens in American politics matters to us. We think that we're going to do well no matter what. We're just going to work hard, figure it out, ace that test, do well, set it up for our kids, and we're going to be successful and prosperous regardless of what's happening in the American political system. If we think anything about American politics, some of us think just keep my taxes low, and then I'll just figure out the rest. And so I'm just going to vote on that one issue. That is the way Asian Americans have been for decades, give or take. And the reason why this has to change is that this election is going to be a unique opportunity for us to actually have a different voice. Number one is that there's an Asian American man running for president as a Democrat, first time in history. Now, those of you who don't keep up with politics might not know this. The first debate is going to be in June of this year, 5 months from now. Now, how valuable would it be to have an Asian American man up on that stage next to Elizabeth Warren, Joe Biden, Cory Booker, and the rest of them? And I can be there very, very easily. All I need is to have people like you in this room donate $1 or more to the campaign, just so I can get the numbers up, so that the Democratic Party says, yes, Andrew Yang does represent the Asian American community and tens, hundreds of thousands of Americans, and he belongs on that debate stage. The debate, they've already said that they're going to put the top 20 people on that stage. They're even willing to spread it out over 2 nights if they have to. So to get an Asian American man on that debate stage is not that hard. All we need to do is just put me in the running, and I'll be there in June. The second historic change for us, aside from the fact that I'm running, is that California just moved its primary voting up about a month and a half, so that traditionally, what I said before, that New York and California, the votes did not matter for presidential politics, which has been true.
Yeah.
So California got really tired of that, so California decided to move itself up. So this year, the order of states voting is going to be number 1, Iowa, number 2, New Hampshire, number 3, Nevada, number 4, South Carolina, and then number 5, California. So this is the first time that Asian Americans in California are going to be able to help select who's going to be president. And I dare say that they might really enjoy having an Asian American in that running. One of the things I say is, if I become president, we're going to rename the White House the Gold House for like a day, and then have some really good dim sum and a celebration of January 2021. So the things that change it for us, number 1, I'm running and I can get on the debate stage and represent our interests. Number 2, California has moved up. And then number 3 is this recognition that this will never happen for the Asian American community unless we make it happen. Like, there have been people who have been involved with politics for a number of years, and they look up and say, hey, we have to like try and get an Asian American senator or governor position to be able to run for president. And some of them, when I'm running, they were like, hey, you know, you're new to the scene, like I haven't known you for decades. And what I said to them is like, look, if Asian Americans wait for it to be our turn, it will never come. It will never be our turn. We make it our turn. And that is why I'm running. Because we can make it our turn if we just get an eye on it. Because there is this sneaking suspicion that many of you have had, and I grew up with it. I grew up when my father came home from IBM, like, angry about the fact that he was in the lab inventing things, and then he had these managers who had washed out of the lab that were now his managers. You know, some of you might relate to some of this. Where he'd come back and he'd like swear up and down about it. And I remember as a teenager that really impacting me. It's one reason I became an entrepreneur, is that I wanted to have my career be dependent upon the work that I did and not what someone else thought about me and my work. And so the suspicion that I had at that point is the suspicion that many of your children are going to grow up with, and many of you have actually already internalized. It is that in America, we are destined to be this successful, but we are not allowed to become this successful. That is like the struggle for many Asian Americans, and many of us are like, hey, I'm grateful to be this successful, it's okay. Like, I don't need to push that hard. And I'm here to say that that is not going to work, that we can lead at the highest levels of this country, because I, like HP and other people here, I have bandwidth the presidents, I have been with the senators, I have been with the governors, and they are no better than us. We are just as good, just as strong, just as smart, just as patriotic, and we love our children just as much. So the hope here is that we can make history together in 2019 and 2020 and have an Asian American person not get the debate stage, win Iowa, win New Hampshire, win Nevada, win South Carolina, get back to my third home of California, and then make history together in 2019 and 2020. So thank you all very much, Schenectady. It's so great to be here with you, to be back home. And hopefully you can see what a native son can become, and that there is no limit for your children or for any of you to make America our home in the years to come. Thank you all very, very much.